Have just won the Comrades Marathon's women's race, but it's back to work today for Ann Ashworth. The Comrades winner is also a full-time advocate, so when she's not in court, she's out on the road, and she's now in studio with us. Thanks very much for coming into studio, Ann. How are you feeling today?
Actually, not too bad. A little less stiff than usual, so I think that's a good sign.
All right, so let's take it. I mean, for me, it's kind of unimaginable to even finish a Comrades Marathon. For you to have won the women's race, how do you get to that point?
It's not something that happens overnight. It's been years in the making. This year was my 7th Comrades Marathon, and from my very first Comrades Marathon I had the dream, and I've just been plugging away at it. And the last 2 years I've been working with Coach John Hamlet, and he really has just turned my running around, and just happened to have a really good day. Totally unexpected. I don't know if he expected it, but I certainly didn't. And just feeling so lucky.
Yeah, I can just, well, I don't think luck has anything to do with it, actually. But take us through, you said this was your 7th Comrades Marathon. Take us through the previous races and perhaps some of the difficulties you had during those races.
Well, I ran my first Comrades in 2008, and it was quite a surreal experience. Just really enjoyed it. I got to the finish line and actually said to my mom, you know, that wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, so I think I'll be back. And she was like, oh, here we go. You know, had 2 years where I didn't train, just really ran socially, ran for fun. Then I ran my first silver in 2010 and was absolutely hooked, knew I had to go back and try and do better. And then ran my second silver in 2016, had a really great run, again also just totally unexpected, and then decided no, things need to get quite serious, and so approached John to coach me, and then worked really hard for last year's Comrades, only to have to pull out in the first kilometre. And that was truly devastating, because I'd given up my job, I'd given up a whole lot of things to try and make Comrades work last year, and then it all seemed to be sacrifices for nothing.
So what happened in that race?
I'd had a niggly hamstring. When you're preparing for the uprun, it's quite common for your hamstrings to take a lot of strain, and it had been problematic. And it flared up in the 2 or 3 days before Comrades, and there was just nothing I could do to release it. And the start of the race is really fast, and if you start that race too fast without warming up properly, which is what I did, something's going to go.
Yeah.
And I ended up tearing a glute within the first 1 kilometre of the race. Sounded like a gunshot going off at the start, and just was floored, couldn't do anything. And it was actually really hard to get back on the road and to just try and stay focused. But my family and friends just rallied around me, and my coach wouldn't let me give up, and so I lined up again this year, sort of with some unfinished business, and just so pleased that the day went well.
So tell us about, let's perhaps talk a bit about the kind of training. I mean, it's easy to say that you train very hard for the Comrades, but actually doing it every single day, what does it take to get to the point that you've gotten to?
Well, I think different strokes for different folks. So I know that some of my competitors don't follow a similar regime to what I do. I do high intensity, high mileage training, which involves a lot of hours on the road. But you know, other athletes might do better on less training, and that's great for them. I'm not one of those athletes. I've got to put some serious time out on the road.
And what kind of time are we talking here?
Yeah.
in an average week, or in a really good week?
Well, I did over 3,000 kilometers from the 1st of January to race day. So that's a lot of time on the road.
How many weeks?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not good at maths.
We're in June now, so for half the year.
Half the year I did 3,000 Ks.
Kilometers.
It was actually about 3,200 Ks, and I had to take 4 weeks off because of injury, so it would have been more. So it's a lot of mileage, but
Jeez.
Something that I did this year that I have never done before was really focus on the mental aspect of the race. I read a lot of sports psychology books, a lot of books dealing with grit, perseverance. What do you do in high race situations? How do you cope with the pain or the wall, or when you're running out of energy? And I have to say that really made a huge difference to me on race day, because when things got really tough, especially around Pinetown, you know, I just was able to kind of tap into that and keep going, and I think that did make a huge difference.
I mean, a lot of people we've spoken to sort of in the run-up and after the Comrades talk about that it's not, yes, it's about putting in the kilometers, as you say, but it's also so much about your mental capacity to get through the race. How do you, when you say, you've just mentioned the wall, when you hit the wall, what do you do then?
Well, you know, if you've hit the wall somewhere along the line, you've made a mistake with your race nutrition. Hitting the wall is really about running out of sugar, and that's a mistake that many people make. You don't take on sugar early enough in the race. So it was important for me to, because I don't exactly have a lot of reserves, to take on sugar from kilometer number 3. I was taking on sugar, and I also had protein along the way. But you know, one of the big things is when somebody passes you in the race, and Morozova did pass me in the race, it's quite easy to give up and to say, okay, well, you know, second place will be great. And somehow you've got to just, you know, fight it and be like, no, I'm not taking second place today, thank you very much. And being able to tap into that, you've got to focus on things that you can control. So I couldn't control anybody else's race. The only race that I could control was my own, and I couldn't control the route or the weather or the water sachets. I couldn't control any of that, but focusing on what you can control and focusing on what is going well for you will help you get through the bad bits.
Perhaps just a final question before we let you go. The things that you take with you in the race, they help you sort of in the everyday life stuff as well?
Definitely. Definitely. I felt that those sports psychology tips were not just for race preparation, but really just rounded me up as a person as a whole. Definitely this year I've been a lot more chillaxed, which has been great, and really just help you deal with high stress situations. So even being an advocate and going into court, definitely found some coping mechanisms that have helped me a lot.
Well, thanks very much for coming into studio, and huge congratulations to you. Incredible feat.
Thanks very much.
Ann Ashworth in studio with us there, the Comrades Marathon's women's race winner. Can you believe it?